You're listening to the Spark Your Light podcast, where my mission is to help you create a life that sparks the light inside of you. And this is episode 284, 3 Simple Steps to Consistent Habits. So it's the new year and everyone is talking about habits and goals. And I don't know about you, but so many times I have set really big goals for the year. In fact, my husband and I were just looking back on our annual goals. We use the same notebook every year. We started it back in 2019, which was the year that we bought our house. So it was kind of the first year we had big goals together as a couple. And we only use that notebook to write our annual goals in, which is really fun. I highly recommend this. That way we can look back and we can see how we've grown and what we've accomplished. And it's really a fun practice. So we were looking back as we were setting our New Year's goals for 2025 on the previous years. And we noticed that all of my goals were these like really huge, crazy things that most of the time I never accomplished. And his were the next step in his path. And he's accomplished so much in his path by just taking these like small strategic steps, which I find really interesting. And we could go into a whole lot of reasons why it can be helpful to just take the next step. And it's not that my big dreams aren't possible or aren't things that I will achieve, but maybe in 1 year, maybe wasn't the best goal for me. And the reason is because I wasn't consistent. And I wasn't consistent because I started with this huge undertaking. And in order to accomplish that huge undertaking, I would have to put in massive, almost overwhelming amounts of time and energy, which I always did at the beginning of the year. But then it would look like it wasn't happening. It would look like it was so far. Now, of course, Faith, this is from Amanda Frances. I love her. I highly recommend her book, Rich AF, if you've never read it. But her mission is to help women with financial empowerment and with their own self-belief. And one of the things that she says is that faith is when it looks like it's not going to happen and you still believe. So I definitely over the years have struggled with faith when it looks like it's not going to happen. But one of the reasons is because I was not consistent with my own action. And that's where this episode starts. So this episode is for you if you feel like you struggle with consistency and you have the desire to have these new habits or make progress towards your goals. And oftentimes whenever you set the goal, whether it's the new year or the beginning of a month or on a Monday, you say that you're going to do these things and you want to and you're motivated, but you can't seem to follow through and then you beat yourself up. If that's you, keep listening. So the first step to creating consistent habits is starting with low intensity. So consistency and intensity are inversely proportional. This means that as we increase our intensity, meaning the amount of time, energy, effort required for something, we decrease the consistency. So if you need to run 10 miles a day every day, it's much less likely that you're going to actually do that every day because it's going to take hours every day. But if you ask yourself to just run half a mile every day, it's much more likely that you would stick with that for months, even the entire year. So what I want you to do is think about these habits you're trying to form and ask yourself, what is something that I truly believe that I could do 7 days a week? I used to say Monday to Friday. That was my big thing, like take the weekends off. But because it's such low intensity, for me personally, I have found this year, I've really been thriving doing the same thing every day and having that consistency and always feeling like I'm making progress towards my goals and that it doesn't take up a lot of my time, that it's something that I can squeeze into every day. So I'm going to go with 7 days a week, 365 days a year, unless there's an emergency. You're very ill. There's a family emergency. Sure. But this is something that you really want to know I could do even on really busy days, even when my routine gets disturbed, even when things don't go as planned. What is that minimum standard, as I always like to call it? It's the minimum commitment you're making to yourself. So it doesn't mean that you can't do more. You can do more, but this is the minimum. Now, an interesting concept I came across in the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown, which I highly recommend that book if you're someone who takes on a lot and you really want to learn to focus on what matters the most and what is really going to move the needle forward. It's a wonderful book. One of the concepts, actually, it's from his second book. Now that I think about it, it's not from Essentialism. It's from Effortless, which is the follow-up book to Essentialism. I'm currently reading Effortless, and I read Essentialism last month. In Effortless, Greg talks about this concept of having a maximum daily output as well as a minimum. So no matter what, I'm not going to do more than X. And that is to prevent burnout, which I find really, really interesting. And he told this great story of these explorers who were, it was this exploration that no group had ever been able to complete. And there were two groups competing against each other. And the one group had the attitude that they were going to do as much as they possibly could every single day until they couldn't go anymore. And then they would stop, rest, and do it again the next day. Unfortunately, everyone on that mission died. The other group had a mentality that they were going to go 15 miles a day, even on days where it was brutal visibility and it was going to be very difficult to go 15 miles. They were going to do it anyway. And even on days where it was sunny and they could probably go significantly more than 15 miles, they were going to stop at 15. That group completed the expedition. And what's really interesting is on the final 3 days, they had really sunny visibility, and they could have went 45 miles on that last day and finished the expedition, but they didn't. They stopped after 15 like they had every time, simply because that was their maximum output. And Greg believes that the reason that this group succeeded is because of that maximum commitment. So that's something really interesting that I'm just being introduced to and I'm starting to play with. But I share it with you so you can think about that as you think about your minimum. Maybe think about, do I have a maximum? And do I think that concept would support me? I personally do think it's supportive because it is easy to burn ourselves out. Another concept from the Effortless book that I really like is only do today what you can fully recover from today. So you should wake up tomorrow morning and you should feel fully recovered from whatever you accomplished the day before. You shouldn't have to stay in bed for 2 days because you're so burnt out and so exhausted. If that's the case, then you need to evaluate what you're doing in one day. So those are some interesting concepts to play with. Ultimately, what I want you to take away from step 1 is that it's important to commit to a small level of consistency, a small level of action that you can take every day, because that daily consistency makes all the difference in the world. For me, I have committed to that with a couple different habits. So reading is one of them. My minimum commitment is just read. So this morning, for example, I'm here in the podcast studio. I have a lot of things to put into place before coming here to record, because as my listeners know, and if you're new here, I'll share with you that I have a 11-month-old baby boy. And so I am quite busy as a stay-at-home mom who also runs a business. I've started owning that title because I am home with my son 90% of the time. I do have help. So I do get help from both my son's grandparents, but it's a small percentage of the week. And most of the time, I am mom, and my work happens before he wakes up in the morning, on a nap, etc. So I've really started owning that title. And with that title, that means that I have a lot of things to put into place. Today, his grandmom is with him, and I set up the lunch, the bottles, all the things in the morning. I have to take a shower, blow dry my hair because unfortunately, you guys would not want to see me with my hair not washed fresh in the morning. It just doesn't look good the next day for some reason. Ever since I had a baby, my hair has really changed. Any other women experience this? First of all, most of it fell out. Excessive amounts, clumps and clumps and clumps and clumps. And you can actually see it's growing back. I'm starting to get like this bang. Maybe some people thought I cut like some little curtain bangs here. No, that's just the baby hairs growing back in. So there's lots of things in the morning on a recording day to get everything ready. And that being said, I am 100% committed to these daily habits, including reading. So this morning, Michael was screaming in his crib, ready for me to get him up. And I still needed to wash my hair. So I was like, oh boy, how am I going to fit in my habit of reading? So what did I do? I opened the book and I read one page. It was probably like not even a full page. It was like, a new chapter starts halfway. And then I read until the first like heading, which was like shortly into the next page. So it was maybe 3/4 of a page, but I did it. I committed to it and I stuck to my habit because there is a small level that I've committed to. This consistency is just a short thing that I'm going to do every day. Now, some days it's more. Some days Michael sleeps in. I woke up super early, which is ideal. I'm really weird. I don't wake up with an alarm. That's very important to me. But I do wake up early. Right now, my current is probably like 6:40. I would like to be getting up around 6, even 5:30. But I want to naturally wake up at that time. So I've been doing this experiment where I slowly get up like 10, 15 minutes earlier. Then I start to feel more tired, 10, 15 minutes earlier at night. I'm just kind of slowly transitioning my body. I just hate the energy of an alarm. I do it when I have to travel because I don't want to miss my flight, obviously, or like if I have a keynote that day or, something like that. I don't think I've slept in past 7 ever since having a baby, just all the things that come with it. But I do set alarms just in case on the really important days. That being said, it's really important to me to do my morning habits regardless of what the day brings. So if Michael is up super early, then I might only read one page. But if maybe he sleeps in till 8, which does happen and is really a wonderful morning for mom, maybe I've read 2 chapters. And that's really awesome too. And I've been thinking about having a maximum. As I said before, my maximum might be 1 chapter. I would say 2 is my absolute max. And I'm playing with that concept to see how it fits into my other goals, right? Because if we have different goals and they're of varying importance, how important is it to you that you spend X amount of time on one thing, right? And so there's other goals that I'm applying these same concepts to, especially work-related goals. For example, I am practicing my new keynote about hope, which I'm going to be giving at a lot of big conferences this year. I'm practicing at least apart from the speech every single day. Sometimes it might be a 3-minute section. Sometimes it's a 20-minute section, right? It just depends, again, on how the morning's going, what else is going on that day, etc. So I have that minimum commitment to myself. And I can say happily that every single day this year, 7 days a week, even when I was sick. So last week I was sick. I had the normal, I feel like winter cold sickness, started with a sore throat. I did have a fever for like a day. Thank God, only one day. I started to feel better. But even with my fever, this might sound crazy, but this is how committed I feel to it. If I was too sick to do it, I would not push myself. And I took lots of time those days to rest. I mean, as much as you can. I was joking with Richie about being a stay-at-home mom versus being a dad who goes to work. and the difference when you're sick. And it's like when dad is sick and takes a sick day and he just like lays in bed all day versus mom is sick and it's a sick day and still has to take care of the child. It's just totally different. And we were laughing about it. But I did take a lot of time for rest. That being said, I still committed to practicing my speech. I think it was a 1-minute section that I just recited. And I felt so proud of myself that I could hold that commitment, and I've held it every single day. And one of the things that I find helpful for the daily commitment is using a habit tracker. So I have been using the app Habit. I'm using the free version. I'm tracking a couple different habits on there, and I'm going to be honest and say I don't even use it for these daily things anymore because I'm so in the habit that I don't even need to use it anymore. That's what's so cool. Like you wouldn't need a habit tracker to say, I brush my teeth every morning. You just do it, right? So eventually it starts to just click and become part of your routine. But in the beginning, it's really helpful to have that in there, especially for things you don't do every day. So I don't believe that every habit has to be something that you do every day. So for example, one of the habits for me is exercise. And right now, for this stage of my life, my goal is 3 times a week. My goal is yoga once, walk once, and spin once. So those are my personal goals. And because of that, I don't quite have the perfect routine with those. Sometimes it might be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Sometimes it might be a Monday, Saturday, Sunday, right? It just depends on what's going on in the week, how long the nap lasts, so many factors for me right now. So because of that, the habit tracker can be really helpful when you have things that aren't like a consistent routine, same time every day type of thing. But for the context of these habits that are most important to you, I do recommend that you find time to do them every single day. So again, step 1 is just simply create a habit that is low intensity that you can commit to every single day, regardless of lots of unexpected things happening. Step 2 is to have a strong why. Now, I know you're thinking, this is so corny and overdone. Everyone talks about the why. We're going to go deeper into this and look at it from a different lens. Yes, your strong why could be, I want to achieve this thing. It's important to me for this reason. We all have all kinds of reasons why we want to achieve our goals. Those things are great. We're going to look at this a little bit deeper. And I've used the goals that I'm personally most motivated towards right now and kind of broke them down into why am I so motivated towards them and what's the universal theme from this why that can be applied to you listening. So the first theme I found is the pain of not doing it. So for this, it applies to my goal of absolutely crushing my new keynotes that are on my Hope speech. So for me, I imagine myself walking off stage at one of these big conferences that I'm speaking at and feeling devastated, disappointed in myself, regretful that I didn't give the time required to practice. And I have felt that way, not to those extreme emotions, but I've definitely walked off stage before and been like, man, that really could have been better. I have. It's a learning experience for me. And because of that, I am not willing to feel that way. The fact that I know that the only thing that will stop me from feeling that is me taking action every single day and being committed to this, I can't not. That why is so strong for me. That pain is so strong. It's everything I've worked towards in my career for the past decade to get to this point and have these opportunities. And I cannot blow them. I will crush them because that pain is just too strong. So I want you to think about your goals. What would it mean for you if you didn't achieve your goal? What would that pain feel like? And just see if that resonates. Now, sometimes it really does. And you have a goal just like mine where you're so moved by it and you can't even imagine not having it. You can't even imagine it not working out. If that's the case, really go back to that. Remind yourself of that on a daily basis. Anytime you feel like you're struggling to maybe fit it in or work your schedule, go back to that. In addition, you might be motivated by pleasure. So I have a different goal, which is my financial goal for my company for the year. And that goal for me is not filled with pain. This is a place of privilege to where I'm not in a position where if I don't hit this goal, bad things happen. I'm very fortunate and grateful to be in the place in my life, in my career, to where I can fall short on financial goals and all of our bills are still paid and very comfortable. Very, very grateful for that. So this is the tricky part because a lot of times people are very motivated early on in their careers, early on in a new goal, in a new journey. They want to completely change their life. That's actually a really sweet spot to be. You have a lot of motivation. That's why you see a lot of people tend to be really successful early on and then they kind of fall off. They don't improve as much. There are a few people that you see that have relentless commitment and they bring the same level of effort to day 3000 that they did to day 1. It's extremely rare. Some of my favorite examples of this you can see in sports. I absolutely love the example that was set by Kobe Bryant, by Michael Jordan. If you haven't watched the Jordan documentary on Netflix, I think it's a fantastic watch to just really see that relentless commitment. I don't remember if it was from that documentary or the Dream Team one, which is another basketball documentary about the Olympic team that Michael Jordan was in. One of those documentaries, I think it might have been the Dream Team one. There's a story where a bunch of the guys on the team went out partying for the night. They're getting back to the hotel, 3 a.m. They're in the elevator, going back up to their room. And Michael Jordan gets into the elevator, going down. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm going to practice." And they just couldn't believe that they were out all night partying and he was going to practice. Someone so successful, so talented, was still going to practice. Did he need to practice? No. Was he? Yes. And that's what made him so great. And the best part of this story is that your relentless commitment actually lifts all the people around you. So a couple of days later, one by one, the other guys started joining him. And by the end of that time, the whole team was getting up at 3 a.m. to practice. Amazing story. And I just think it shows the importance of if you want to be great, you have to be willing to give that same level of commitment even when you are already great, even when you've already done so much and accomplished so much. That is when you need it the most. But ironically, that is also when you have the least amount of motivation. So this is where the pleasure comes in. So for me, with this financial goal, I want to achieve it. And I have this spark inside of me. But it's not because of the money. It's not even because of what the money can do for me or my family. Those things are amazing. So grateful for them. I know that they will be so wonderful. But for me, the reason and my spark is the pleasure of this game of manifestation, where I get to decide what I want in my life. And I get to choose in my mind what I get to have. And then through the power of my mind, which then creates actions and all these other things, I can make it happen. Because if I can achieve this goal that feels wildly unrealistic, what that means is that we can create anything in life that we set our minds to, and we can manifest anything we want. And we truly have the power to create what we want in life. And when I can prove that to myself bigger than I ever have before, on a bigger level, on a level that feels more scary, to me, that is the sweetest pleasure in the world. And so you have to figure out what it is for you if you're in this place of you're no longer motivated by pain. What pleasure is motivating you? And it could also be pain up until the very end. Maybe it's, for an athlete, pain that they haven't won a championship. And maybe they're going to hold that pain until they win one. But what happens when they win one? Then what motivates them? So I think this is really, really important to figure out, like, what sparks your light. That's what it is at the end of the day. So for me, it's this like concept of manifestation and this proof to myself of my own inner power and my own ability to make it happen. That really sparks my light. And because of that, I feel motivated to take the daily actions that are small, that I've committed to, that I know are going to get me there. So think about what those things are for you and use those motivators. And finally, the third step in creating consistent habits is to do them first thing in your day. This is very important because life will derail you. Most of the time, your life and your day is a series of other people taking up your precious time for their personal desires, interests, goals, right? So just think about all the things that come up in a day. You're working and people are emailing you. What are they emailing you? They're asking for things. And even if the things are, things that you want and things that move you in the right direction, there's still other people asking you for things. And unless you decided that that's what you wanted to spend your time doing, is sending those things to those people, then they're derailing you, right? And then all the other things that come up throughout the day. If you do it first, you will feel so good and you will carry that positive energy throughout your day. And it does lead to a ripple effect in that energy. And you'll be much more likely to get it done. So I highly encourage you to find a way to fit it into your morning routine. I used to say, well, if you're not a morning person, do it at night. It's okay to do more at night, but what's the minimum? What if your night gets derailed? What if your kid's sick or something comes up and you can't do it at night, right? What happens then? What happens when a friend needs you or a loved one or something unexpected happens at home, right? You're not going to get to it. So do it in the morning. And if you want to do extra at night, great. Again, think about that maximum output component and see how that maybe applies. And maybe you don't have a maximum. Maybe not everyone needs one. I'm not sure. That's a new concept for me that I've been, like I said, just thinking about. But at the minimum, do the minimum in the morning. That's the only way you're not going to break your habit. That's the only way you're truly going to stick to it. So I hope that you try these 3 simple steps, connect to that motivation, start small and do it in the morning. And I'm really excited to hear about how these new habits change your life, because our life really is a sum total of the habits that we consistently hold on a daily basis. And the more that you can intentionally create habits that help you become the person you want to be and achieve the goals that you want to achieve, nothing stops you from living out your dream life. Thank you so much for tuning in. By the way, if you're new here and you're loving the podcast, I'd be super, super grateful if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts, or if you listen on Spotify, if you leave us stars, or if you're listening on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, a like. All those things really help get this show into the hands of people that it can help. And that's, at the end of the day, my biggest mission. So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you have an amazing week, and I will catch you in the next episode.